Hello, my dear friends. This is Mr. How, and I am sharing with you once again another how-to video. This video may not be as upbeat, perhaps, as my other videos, but there's times in which the Holy Spirit kind of pushes me into speaking on a certain topic, and I thought that this was perhaps the best time to do so. What I want to discuss is a question that many people have in regards to why God allows certain things to happen. This question usually comes up when someone who is near and dear to us passes away. Specifically those that we feel as though were called back to God well before their time. Specifically a child, a teenager, someone who is pretty young that we wouldn't expect to pass away. And we begin to ask questions like, why would God allow such a thing to happen? And this is a fair question, I think, because part of our human nature, my friends, is that we are given this great gift, and it's the gift of our mind, and it's the gift to be able to ask questions. It's the gift to be able to ask those deep, thought-provoking questions, and to inquire, and to search for an answer, and to search for truth. And this gift was given to us by no other than God Himself. But sometimes this gift that we have that was given to us by God also allows us to begin to question why God allows certain things to happen. You see, my dear friends, we live in a generation where the answer to a lot of our questions is at our fingertips. We don't have to run to the library anymore and go through a card catalog and find a book in order to find the answer to a question. You see, my friends, the answers to all the questions that we have could be right on our phone or right on our laptop. You see, the answer to our question can be answered within milliseconds. And we can find more than one possible answer. And the more we want to research, the quicker we could do so. So sometimes the answer to a question is answered very quickly. But there are certain questions, unfortunately, that perhaps we can't Google. We can't look up. We can't get within milliseconds. And this is what frustrates us. This is what begins to get us angry and perhaps turn our attention away from God. You see, my dear friends, when we lose somebody so close to us, we begin to question, why would God allow such things to happen? And I can go into the free will question, and I can go into and give you the free will answer and say that, because of the great gift of free will, God is not going to interfere because He doesn't want to take away that great gift that we have. But sometimes for me, those theological answers aren't satisfying. You see, when we begin to question, or we begin to ask, why would God allow such a thing to happen? Perhaps we're asking the wrong question. You see, my friends, I don't think that's a question that can be answered. I don't think it's a question that's even fair to ask, to a certain extent. Because what we're trying to do is we are trying to understand what God is thinking, similar to the way we try to understand a scientific problem, or a difficult math question, or the interpretation of a certain text. See, what we need to realize is that what goes on in God's mind is incomprehensible to our human mind. We need to understand that our mind has limitations. As great as a gift it is, there is a limitation. And we have to not be too selfish in going and asking a question, perhaps, which is only comprehensible to God Himself. You see, my friends, to accept this to a certain extent also allows us to accept our limitations as a human being. Because what we don't want to do is to get so angry at God because we want to know what God is thinking that we begin to turn our attention away from God. That just leads us down into a darker and darker path. You see, I think St. Augustine does the best job of providing us an idea of what this is all about the questions in which we are asking, and in regards to the limitations of our mind. You see, St. Augustine shares with us, and I believe it's in his Confessions, that he was walking on a beach, and in the distance he saw a young boy walking from the beach to the shore, and with him the boy was carrying a seashell. And what the boy was doing is he was scooping water from the ocean and bringing it and pouring it into a small hole on shore. And St. Augustine says to this boy, the great theologian that he is, he says, "What are you doing?" And the boy says, "I'm filling this hole with the ocean." And St. Augustine, being the theologian that he is, and being the great thinker and philosopher, he says, "Do you not realize that it is impossible to fit the entire ocean into this small hole?" And the boy looks at Augustine and he says, "Do you also not realize that it is impossible to understand the Trinity within the concept of your small mind?" And St. Augustine kind of looks in the distance to ponder what it is that this boy had just said. And when he looked back, the boy was gone. You see, my dear friends, I think Augustine gives us a great lesson here. Even someone as brilliant as St. Augustine, who is trying to comprehend probably the most difficult concept in all of human history, and that of the most blessed and sacred Trinity, of the three persons in one God, and how is that even possible? Even St. Augustine was reminded that there are some things in which are incomprehensible to our human mind. My friends, when we lose someone that we love dearly, whether they are young or whether they are old, to question, why did God take them, perhaps, is an incomprehensible question to get answered. Perhaps I could share with you how I deal with tragedy and how I deal with loss in my life. Not to say it's easy, and not to say I still don't question it, but at least it brings some solace, and it brings that element of faith into my ability to perhaps understand why they were called home. You see, my friends, when I lose somebody that I love, I don't picture God being out there, being distant, watching things happen, and then letting us deal with the sorrow. No. What I picture is God is there with us in our sorrow. That God is there weeping over the grave, as he did with his friend Lazarus. So, my dear friends, the next time we begin to ask that question of why would God allow this to happen, perhaps we need to not so much ask such an impossible question to find an answer, but to find within our own heart the faith to know that in our mourning and in our sorrow, God is right next to us. I thank you all for listening. I really hope that this helps in perhaps what may be a very difficult time in your life. I hope more videos to come, and may God bless you all. God bless.